Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest Urban Legends video. One last one here based on your suggestions, and then I'll give this series a rest for probably a couple of weeks and then start all over again. This one is an interesting variation of a popular, it is an urban legend, but it's a theme that has appeared within various locations in the world. There was one most recently a couple of years back. I can't remember the exact year, but I remember reading about it and seeing images of it here in the U.S. This one, though, has to do with an urban legend that has been around for a long, long time. But again, it follows the theme associated with the idea that there are places apparently that the devil himself has wandered around here on earth physically in person, and that there are still remnants of, I guess, his interactions. And it has to do with the urban legend tied with the devil's footstep, in this case in particular with a church that's located in Munich, Germany. So at least for this urban legend, we're going to talk about this specific devil's footstep and not some of the other ones that have come around from the past couple of years especially. I may touch upon those later on, maybe in another video. It's just that when I remember looking at some of that info, there wasn't much to talk about. So we'll see. So, in any case, this Devil's Footstep has to do again with a church there in Munich, Germany. It's a beautiful looking church. The name itself, I know I'm going to mispronounce it, but it's called the Frauenkirche. I don't know. Again, my apologies with regards to some of these foreign names, but it has to do with this church, which again is very beautiful. It's built a long, long time ago. I mean, we're talking around 1400s or so. That's the curious thing about these churches. You notice that when it comes to them being built, who knows how many hundreds of years ago, they were built with such beauty and it comes with such specifications that they last hundreds and hundreds of years. I mean, you look at some of the other surrounding buildings and homes that were probably built later on, how they've pretty much deteriorated. But here, these churches, they seem to maintain almost the pristine look that they did when they first made. A very impressive looking church. You're looking at some pictures of it here. By far its most distinct characteristic happens to be those two towers, or twin towers of sort, that stand at the front of the church. What's great to note about those towers is that, again, this was built in the 1400s. The level of detail and exact specificity is amazing because the two towers themselves are almost identical in height. Now, I was reading about that information. What separates them in height is only 4 inches. That is amazing considering the technology that they had back then, and the hardness of building something like this compared at least to today, that they were able to build these gigantic towers on the church and only have them be about 4 inches separating them in height. When it comes to difference, is amazing. So great looking stuff. On the inside, you'll see this picture. It showcases the long, I guess you could call it, hallway that makes up the bulk of the church. It utilizes a design of sorts that is supposed to make sure that it kind of tricks the eye, because when you're looking at the church from the outside, it is a very, very long looking church, but when you look on the inside, it still looks connected. It looks closer. It's kind of like the trick that the casinos there in Las Vegas utilize, where whenever you're walking down a casino from one end to another, if you were outside, you would think to yourself, oh my god, I'm going to walk all that. But when you're on the inside, the way they're built, it actually makes it seem like all of a sudden you haven't walked that long, or that long of a period. So it looks like the same style is here as well. You'll notice too that, at least based on this picture, there seems to be no windows, which is an optical illusion, of course, because those pillars, or those walls, I guess you could call them, the way that they form and the way that the angle is whenever you walk in the church, there's nothing visible towards the left and right, only towards the very far corner. It makes it look like there's one window only. And this has to do with this urban legend of the devil's footstep, because the idea goes that somewhere past the 1400s, but before today's period, at least definitely before World War II, there was the idea that the devil himself visited this church, almost I guess as a mockery of sorts, or as something involving just him visiting and just seeing how things are going, because the idea is something made him so mad when he was visiting this church that he left a distinct footprint there, which you're looking at, and it has to do with the fact that it is his footprint, and to this day visitors and tourists and some of the people there, the churchgoers, go there specifically to look at this quote unquote devil's footstep. Now the urban legend goes into several areas as to what made the devil so mad. There's the idea that he went there because he was curious about the church when he was being built. He wanted to see what this grand, I guess, hallmark church was going to look like, and almost in a sense of getting a mockery of just standing within it, what would be such a hallowed and then holy ground of sorts. And then when he was there, somehow his footstep, either through searing hotness or just, I guess, through some kind of effect of some sort, left its imprint there to this day. And the way that this urban legend further expounded is the fact that much of the church itself was destroyed during the bombings, I guess, of World War II. I don't know if they were the bombings specifically, but something definitely destroyed during World War II, much of the interior. But curiously enough, this footprint was left in pristine condition. So that's why it adds further to the urban legend that it was indeed the devil himself that caused it. Now, another version of the urban legend, at least for his visit, had to do with the fact that he himself actually funded the construction of the church, which would be a bit of an irony. You know, if people later in that church would later find out that there they are in such a holy ground, only to learn that it was funded by the devil himself, then it would be one of those gotcha moments. But he created the funding on one condition. He told apparently the builder that he wanted to make sure there were no windows, maybe as a way to ensure that the churchgoers there would not see all the beautiful land surrounding it. Again, almost like a mockery of sorts. And when that happened, the builder found a way to trick the devil himself. And the way he did it was he created that illusion that I was mentioning earlier with those altars, with those large columns, where when someone was at the very, very front of the church walking in, they would see those columns, but the columns would obscure everything on the left and everything on the right and make it look again like there were no windows. And at that time, back then, there was also something hiding that very, very far end window. It was some kind of foyer of some sort. It was so tall that it blocked that window. So again, it made it seem like there was no windows at all. But the way that the devil was tricked was he walked in the church, and then when he finally got to a point where he was beyond those pillars or those columns, that's when he saw the windows, and then that's when he realized he himself was so tricked that he grew mad. Maybe he got hot, and then that's where he started stomping the ground, and it caused that footstep. So that's another variation of it. One last one with regards to a version of this urban legend is the idea that the devil also visited the church riding on an evil wind or a large gust of wind of some sort. Again, wanting to see what the status of the church was, maybe cause some havoc here and there. And when he did so, he was repelled in some way or in some manner, but either case, he again left mad. He left his footstep there, but he left in such a hurry that he actually left that wind behind. And so the idea is that when people visit that church, there's a very strong gust of wind. I don't know which direction it's coming from, if it's from the towers themselves or if it's from the back of the church, but apparently people that visit it state that there is a very, very strong gust of wind, and that is the same wind that the devil accidentally left behind, and it'll stay there until he actually comes back and reclaims it somehow or revisits that location too. So those are the versions, everything associated with this devil's footstep, again only located there in the church in Munich, Germany. I picked this urban legend too because it reminded me of one of my favorite stories from Hellblazer, or as some people know it, Constantine, the comic book, and it has to do with, in this case, Constantine's very first encounter, I believe it was, with the devil. with him visiting him to try to claim a soul from a friend, and it got me interested, at least in this urban legend, because I remember that story so well. How when the devil visited, he just visited as a regular man. Like he had, at least in that comic book, he had like a white collared shirt and black dress pants, and I think a long black coat of some sort, neatly groomed, just normal looking. And so when looking at this urban legend, I imagine that something like that would have been along the lines, had indeed the devil would have visited that church itself. So if anyone has any more information about this very nice urban legend, an interesting urban legend, please post those comments below. That's the only footstep apparently that survived too. So if there were other footsteps surrounding that church, they are long gone by now. So, all right, everybody. Thanks again as always. Take care.